Good morning, big feet people. How we doing this morning? All right, we're going to get the program started here. First up, we're going to introduce to you Mr. Mike Famelant. Mike has been researching Bigfoot for over 13 years and has captured some impressive evidence along the way. From the Florida swamps to the North Country of Maine and everywhere in between, Mike is the full-time lead investigator and producer of the YouTube show In the Shadow of the Big Red Eye. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mike Famelant.
Are we on? Hello! Wow, Forest County showing up! My goodness, how's everybody doing today? You ready to have some fun? Fun-filled day of Bigfoot, some awesome speakers? Awesome. So the first thing that I did, I actually got into town on Tuesday. The first thing I did was I stopped in at Yaney's Maple Syrup. If you guys have never been there, stop in at his booth. Dave's the one that put on this whole show. Without Dave, none of this could be possible. Let's give Dave a big round, Bigfoot round of applause. So a little bit about me. I have a YouTube show called In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. I've been researching Bigfoot since 2011. We're currently filming our 8th season of our show In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. And I'm going to be your MC of the show for this weekend. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be blessing you with my presence for the next couple of hours and so. But anyways, I'm going to be also telling you some trials and tribulations of things that happen when we're out Bigfooting. Do you guys want to know the most scared that I've ever been out in the woods? So this is in New Jersey. I am from New Jersey, northwest New Jersey, the armpit of Pennsylvania and New York. The most scared I've ever been, I was camping in Stokes State Forest, which is in New Jersey. And it was a cold night, a February night, but it was very bright out, right? The moon was shining down. So I'm in 2 mummy sleeping bags. You guys know what a mummy sleeping bag is, right? So you're not getting out of those things, right? I'm zippered up. I'm so cold. I had just laid down and rested my head down on my pillow. And then it happened. What was it? Something came down. The shadow from the top of my head starts coming down. And what was it? Spider. Most scared I've ever been in the woods, ladies and gentlemen. We're not here to see me, though, right? Who's the main character today? Cliff Barackman has been a Bigfoot researcher since 1994. His expeditions have taken him to 46 states and 5 continents in search of this undiscovered hominids worldwide. As the evidence analyst on Animal Planet's hit television show, Finding Bigfoot, who has seen Finding Bigfoot? Cliff has applied his skills and expertise to a variety of photographic, video, film, and sound evidence. Cliff is especially familiar with the footprints and handprint evidence for Sasquatches, and he is a curator of one of the largest collections of cast evidence in the world. He also is the co-owner and curator of the North American Bigfoot Center. Cliff is an accomplished musician and outdoorsman living a quiet life on the western slopes of Oregon's Cascade Mountain Range, deep in the heart of Bigfoot country. Ladies and gentlemen, Cliff.
Hello, nerds. I don't want to be tethered to this thing. Thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me here. I've been hearing rumors about this gig, and I call these things gigs because these are jobs for me, but it's a lot of fun. I do have the best job in the entire world as far as I know. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with moving piles of dirt here and there, but I love doing what I do, right? I've been hearing rumors about this job for a couple of years and how great it is and how it keeps growing year after year. And I was excited to be invited out. I'm thrilled to be here. I love Pennsylvania. I've been Bigfooting in Pennsylvania a lot of times, and you know what? Pennsylvania's been very, very good to me. In fact, my wife is from Pennsylvania. I stole her from you, sorry. She was born and raised up there in Sarver, just north of, Sarver people. Yeah, very good. My in-laws live on Sarver Road, in fact. So yeah, I've been to Sarver a number of times. I was going to try to swing by. I couldn't do it this time, but I did have a dinner with her dad for a couple hours before I got out here at midnight on Thursday. You know what's funny about the Pennsylvania and the whole wife thing? My wife's name is Melissa. She's my favorite thing on the planet. And then it turns out that Matt Moneymaker, you remember him from the show, right? So long before the show happened, I think it was in maybe 2007, 2008 or something like that, Moneymaker called me. He had a sponsor at the time. And a police officer saw a Sasquatch down on Little Buffalo Creek. Is that right, my Sarber people? Yeah, Little Buffalo Creek, down in there. And Moneymaker called me and says, Cliff, what are you doing? Let's go out to Little Buffalo Creek out there in Butler County, and let's go check it out. A cop saw one of these things, and I think it's legit, etc. So Moneymaker flew me out. This is before the TV show, because I've been Bigfooting a long time. This is my 30th year of doing Sasquatch research. So Moneymaker flew me out, and we went out there to Little Buffalo Creek. We walked up the river, and Matt is very good at what he does. I know Matt's a little controversial. He's kind of like, he's a type, you know what type A personalities are? Matt's kind of a type capital A personality, and he just rubs people wrong sometimes, but he's an acquired taste. He's actually a lovely man, what a really good friend of mine. So we got out here, and he does his magic. You give Matt the BFRO database, and you give him Google Maps, and I guarantee you, he will find a Sasquatch for you within a few days. He is very good at what he does. He does not get the credit he deserves. He's excellent. But he says, you know what, Cliff, I think they're going to be in this valley, this small little tributary of the Little Buffalo Creek. And I go, really? Okay. And he kind of taught me why. I've learned a lot from Matt over the years. He's been a great mentor of mine. And so we go up this beautiful river, kind of slow-moving, like shallow, muddy river that I guess is Little Buffalo. Down there by the there's an old abandoned brick factory or something, if you know where that area is. And so we go up there about a mile, and here's the tributary, and it's this narrow tributary with steep rocky ledges. Matt and I start going up, and he goes, you know what, I think this is the area they're going to be in, and he explains to me why, and he was right, basically. Matt was down in the creek. I crawled up the side of this precipice, and sure enough, within a few minutes, knocking started on all three sides. We had whistles going back and forth. A great area. Great. Then they left, and we didn't see them or anything, but I'm pretty sure that they were there. We continued up, and it turns out that this creek flows underneath Mushroom Mine Road, if you know where that is. And there's even a mushroom mine, an abandoned mushroom mine that Matt and I went into, because, you know, I'm not as smart as I look. I like playing in abandoned mines. And it's weird, you know, we went back there in the mine, and in the very back, some kids got in there at some point and spray painted on the wall, you know, which is rude, disrespectful. It's kind of like a dog peeing on a bush as far as I'm concerned. But what they spray painted was a giant footprint. So that's odd. That's really odd. But Mushroom Mine Road, there's a tributary Little Buffalo Creek, check it out. But I guess the point of that story is that little did I know, this is back in 2008, little did I know that my future wife was 6 miles away. So wasn't that something, right? Okay, but anyway, therefore I do love Pennsylvania, and I love any opportunity to come back here. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for caring about what I do. Thank you. So you guys probably know a little bit about me. I'll just do a brief overview real fast. I'm some Bigfoot nerd. I was on a TV show for a long time. I've been Bigfooting for 30 years. 30 years. This is my 30th year in the field. Before that, I was reading all the books I could, but I grew up in Long Beach, California, kind of this cement area where there's not a lot of Bigfoots at all. It was a great place to grow up, of course. You know, I mean, I had all the pleasures of going to LA, and I'm a musician. I actually have a degree in jazz guitar, so I had a lot of playing opportunity through the years. I played the Whiskey A Go-Go and the Roxy and the Anti-Club and all these LA Sunset clubs and stuff. But my interest went over to Sasquatch, and I moved. And now I live in a little town called Sandy, Oregon, which is about maybe 45 minutes outside of Portland. And since the show has gone off the air, I have opened a Bigfoot museum. In general, I find television to be a shallow, superficial medium. You know, and even our show, which I think was a pretty good show, it's probably all of our producers have told me that it is the most real reality show that they've ever worked on, which I think is a good thing. But even our show I found to be kind of shallow and superficial, even though I understand it's fun and, you know, it's cool. But I always thought that they should do more and go more in depth. So when I got off the show, I thought maybe the most reasonable thing for me to do is continue my educational purpose of educating the public about Sasquatches. So I opened a Bigfoot museum. It is called the North American Bigfoot Center. Some of you are members. I know that, by the way, because some of you have come up to tell me that at the booth today, and I appreciate your membership. I'll talk about that later. My museum, my wife and I opened it in 2019. We're 5 years in. We opened it right before COVID shut us down. That sucked. God, that was terrible. Because, I just saved my money from the TV show. I didn't make a lot of money on TV, but I made more than I was as a teacher. So I just saved all that, because I was an elementary school teacher for a long time. I don't know if you know that or not. I was a 5th grade teacher for 14 years when I got the call from Animal Planet inviting me to be on the show. So that's probably why most people like me, because I can communicate kind of advanced ideas in a way that everybody can understand, like most teachers can. So when the show went off the air and we opened the museum, we opened it up with all the money I had saved from the TV show, and then COVID shut us down for 3 or 4 months and almost took every single thing I had ever earned for the last 10 years away from me. But that all went away, thank goodness. And now the museum is actually not only existing and surviving, but we're thriving. We're actually thriving. And then, by the way, I'm not rich, I never will be. You can only make 2 amounts of money. One of the camera guys, Dana, on the TV show told me, you can only make 2 amounts of money. Enough or not enough. I make enough. I'm very, very blessed. So the museum exists for 3 main reasons. Our mandate, our purpose for existing at all, 3 main reasons. The first reason is, of course, to educate the public on Sasquatches. Educate the public on Sasquatches. They are perfectly normal animals. You look on TV and there's orbs and portals and shadow men and nonsense and BS. Sasquatches are perfectly normal animals. They are mammals. Everything about them can be found in other species of primates. Everything that they do can be seen in behaviors and from other animals. In fact, most of the time, the other animals do it better than them. The only thing Sasquatches excel at is not being discovered. But looking at them, everything about them says, I evolved on this planet. So please, please, please do not advocate for the paranormal. It does damage to the subject, it disrespects the researchers, and in my opinion, disrespects the animals themselves. If you are a paranormal person, that's fine. The universe is full of weird things. I have seen a UFO. I've had weird ghost things. They're not cool at all. I don't want to ever encounter anything. Whatever that was, I have no interest in it whatsoever. Sasquatches are mammals. They are primates. They are animals. Several of you have actually come up to me and said, do you think they're humans or are they animals? Humans are animals. What are we, plants? We're not fungi. We are animals. I speak in biological terms, and I encourage all of you to speak in biological terms about these animals as well. How intelligent are they? I don't know. We'll see. But at this point, we need to treat the animals and the subject with the respect they deserve by treating it as a biological subject worthy of inquiry. To do anything else than that drives away the scientists that we want to be involved in this subject. So I encourage you to speak of this subject like it's like any other animal that we just don't know very much about. The second reason that our museum exists is to use incoming information to drive our own field research. I am still out in the woods generally at least once a week. I was out 3 times last week. This week, Shane Corson and I from the Olympic Project are going to go out for 3 nights. 2 nights, 3 days. So yeah, I am out in the woods all the time. And when I was a teacher, I went to workshops all the time. And the teachers who were teaching me how to be a better teacher were always saying, your students will tell you what they need to know. You give them assessments, tests, and whatever they're terrible at, teach them that. Use the data that your students give you to drive your instruction. That's what good teachers do. So I'm using that idea to drive our field research at the museum. When people come in and they say, oh, I saw a Sasquatch, we mark it on the map, we take the notes, blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon, patterns develop. I've gotten very good at determining where the Sasquatches are. In fact, last summer, somebody came into the shop and said, Cliff, I saw a Sasquatch 3 years ago. It's down on the Calawash River. And I go, oh, was it on this road, 64 and when I'm blah, blah, blah? And they go, yeah, how did you know that? I said, that's because everybody sees them there. When you start collecting data and analyzing the data, patterns will develop. So all of you Bigfooters out there, people who enjoy going to the woods and looking for these things, use your data to drive your field research. And we have been very successful at doing this at the museum. How successful? Last week, I cast 6 footprints. Actually, that's a lie. 5 footprints, 1 handprint. Down the Clackamas River in Oregon. Yeah, in Clackamas County. That's where I live. I don't go very far to Bigfoot. I live in Oregon for a reason. I live where I vacationed. So basically, I don't drive very far. Find a spot near you where there is a Sasquatch, where there's a cluster of reports, 2 or 3 or 4 reports, and go there often as you can, at least once a week. And you'll start learning the patterns. You're learning when they're there, where they're going, that sort of stuff. So that is the second reason that the museum exists. The first was to educate the public. The second is to use incoming data to drive our own field research to further our knowledge about Sasquatches. And then the third reason, and this is probably the most important work we're doing, is we are trying to find and curate and protect historic collections. Let me explain that. The very first generation of Bigfooters, the John Greens, the Rene DeHindens, the Grover Krantzes, the Peter Burns, they're all dead. Every one of those dudes is now dead. Most of their colleagues are dead as well. The second generation of Bigfooters, they're getting old. The ones that are left are in their 70s and 80s, and they may not have that much longer. But all these people have a lot of information that they gathered over their lifetime. What happens to their collection? What happens to their sighting reports? What happens to their casts? What happens to their newspaper clippings? What happens to everything they've gathered? What happens to their hair samples that they have when they pass away? Well, imagine their heirs. Imagine their offspring. Okay, Weird Uncle Joe was into Bigfoot, and Weird Uncle Joe just died. Here's 3 file cabinets full of stuff. But Bigfoot isn't real. This stuff's garbage. Most of that stuff gets thrown away. Thrown away! From my perspective, that's not a crime, but that's a travesty, you know? Sasquatches are real animals. They're actually real. They're really there. It's just that this discovery process that we're looking at right now is really elongated. It's taken a long time, and we're having trouble getting it done. After they're recognized as real animals here in North America, all this pre-discovery stuff is going to be of great historical interest. Our museum is doing everything we can to find these collections and preserve them for that eventuality. There will be a day Sasquatches are recognized as a perfectly normal species here in North America. And it's going to have history books will be written about the discovery process that we went through to discover this species. It's going to be fascinating. And as far as I know, pretty much nobody else is doing it. Nobody's trying to get everything under one roof. So far, we've collected some pretty important collections. Barbara Wasson, most of you have never heard of her. She was one of the only women involved in this in the early 1970s. There were 2 women that were involved with John Green and Rene DeHinden and Peter Byrne and all those guys. Only 2 women had a voice at that time, to my knowledge. There were probably other women who are interested, and when I go through people's collection, when I go through historical papers, I can only find 2 women whose names come up again and again and again. Barbara Wasson and Joyce Kearney. I had an opportunity to meet Joyce before she passed away. I have no idea what happened to her collection. Barbara Wasson's offspring, her son and daughter have reached out to me, and they say, we want this to go to some place that Barbara, our mother, can continue teaching and learning about, teaching people about Sasquatches. So we made an agreement. Now the North American Bigfoot Center owns her entire research collection. Barbara wrote a book. It's called Sasquatch Apparitions. Maybe you've read it. That's the Barbara Wasson I'm talking about. We also have Dr. Leroy Fish's collection. Dr. Leroy Fish is one of the individuals, he was a wildlife biologist. He was one of the individuals involved in the Skookum Cast expedition. We've obtained what was left of his collection. Most people have heard of Paul Freeman. Michael Freeman, Paul's son, is a very, very good friend of mine. One of my best friends, really. And Michael Freeman and I have now made an agreement that Paul Freeman's footprint cast collection will be coming to the museum when Dr. Meldrum is ready to retire. Right now, Dr. Meldrum is the curator for the entire Paul Freeman collection, but Jeff's getting ready for retirement in the next couple years. When Jeff is ready to let them go, Paul Freeman's entire research collection will be coming to the museum to live, to continue teaching about Sasquatch to the next generation. There are more collections that we have arrangements for, but I don't have my hands on them, so I won't talk about those. But you see, those are the 3 reasons the North American Bigfoot Center kind of exists. I think we're doing God's work. There's nobody out there doing what we're doing. And I'm really, really proud to be associated with this thing that has been built up around me. I don't take credit for it. I may own it, but my colleagues at the shop and I all run it together. It is a group effort. We have a team of volunteers who are archiving all of this material. All of this material that I've mentioned to you and more is being digitized. Actually, as we speak, we have a volunteer in the museum today doing it, digitizing the entire collection for eventually sharing with you publicly. So something for you guys to look at, or something to look forward to at least. So anyway, that's a little bit about what we've been doing out there in Oregon. We do have a membership. I'll just tell you really fast, and then I'm going to just take questions from you and answer whatever questions you have on whatever topic you want. You know, I don't care. We have a membership for people who can't make it out to Oregon. As I said, some of you are members. Our membership is a Patreon thing. It's $6 a month. I'm trying to get 5, and Patreon nickels and dimes me, you know, so I charge 6. So for the cost of a beer and a tip, once a month, you can get weekly updates on the museum. You get field reports from my own field research because I don't publish those anywhere else except for the members. I don't put them on Facebook because I don't voluntarily choose to get bullied, which is what Facebook mostly is nowadays. Facebook to me seems like a wonderful way to show off your particular mental illness. That's what I get from Facebook. You know, I just don't understand why anybody's on it anymore, honestly. I have Facebook pages, but I just put things out. I don't even look at the comments, honestly. It's not a good way to contact me. Email me. This is a far better way to contact me. But anyway, the members, they get field reports, they get weekly updates in the museum, they get special offers when we have cool products we want to share, they get special invitations to the museum for special events, like when Dr. Meldrum is in town, he'll come by and he'll do a special presentation just for museum members. But the real pleasure, in my opinion, the real joy, the real value of our membership, especially for you people who have told me 5 times today that I miss seeing you on TV. Our members get 2 video documentaries that we film and make and produce and edit in the museum every single month, featuring our own field research or deep dives into pieces of evidence. Because remember, I find television to be shallow and superficial. So can you imagine the nerd level when Cliff gets into a footprint cast and tells you everything he knows about it? That's what you get. You get 2 of those every single month. Maybe you're interested, maybe you're not. For those of you who are, go to the website, NorthAmericanBigfootCenter.com, and then click membership and do what you want. And by the way, about a year after we post these, our members get 2 a month. About a year after I post them, I choose one of them, and I put it on a YouTube page for free. So you can go check it out for free there if you want. But if you want them as they happen, up to the minute stuff, be a member. If you're okay waiting a year, go watch them for free on YouTube. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. That's my spiel about my museum. Anybody have questions about anything I'm doing? How about you right there? I'll repeat the question for everybody in the back too, by the way, okay? I haven't forgot about you. What is it? Do I know that man there? No. Maybe. I don't know. Marv Geyser, okay. Okay, he's got a big chunk of land here somewhere in Pennsylvania. I don't know where it is. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Okay, so I made a mistake in my geography. I don't live here, to be fair, right? Okay, I don't know. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, there's some cop that saw. They're telling me about the sighting report that Matt and I investigated back in 2008, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good area. Great, great. Yeah, people have shot at these things, okay. Well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't jump off the bridge. That's not very smart. Yeah. Oh, Bigfoot did, yeah. Okay. You know, I'm going to have to cut you off because I want to make sure everybody gets a question, but you can always tell me stories at the table, and I don't mean no disrespect for that. I'm trying to respect everybody else, okay? It's okay, it's okay. Thank you for sharing that. Come to the table and tell me about it. What about you, sir? He's asking me if there's ever been a time on any of my expeditions where I have been totally frightened and I said, oh man, I really should not be here. Only when Moneymaker's driving and I'm in the back seat. Yeah, that's the scariest time of all, you know, and there's been a few other times here and there. Like I remember one time, I think we were in Kentucky, if I remember right. We were out there and some coon hunters were around as well, but they didn't know we were there, so they were just kind of shooting and everything like that. So that's a little sketchy. I don't like that very much. You know, but most of the time where I'm doing stuff nowadays, I drive, most of my spots are like one road in, and then there might be a maze of roads over there, but there's one road in. So I can drive every single spot there and then park my car at that one spot where I know anybody's coming in or out. So I purposefully choose my spots to be isolated. So nowadays, no. On the TV show, I had influence. I didn't have control. I had influence over where we went. Usually on the TV show, we were behind locked gates or on private land where we were confident no one else would be. And occasionally when we were on public land, we did our very, very best to make sure that the area was secure. So we wouldn't be fooled by other people's vocalizations or any of that kind of stuff. But no, out in the woods, I do go Bigfooting alone a lot. Okay, and in my area in Oregon, they've stopped allowing people to hunt mountain lions with dogs, which is really the only effective way to hunt mountain lions. So the mountain lion population has exploded. It's exploded. Which really has really cut down on the deer and elk and stuff. It's really out of balance at this point. The game folks probably need to do a better job at this. But nonetheless, so I'm mostly worried about mountain lions when I'm out. But I figure I'm not going to worry too much because I'll never hear one coming anyway, you know? They'll just like be grabbing onto the back of my neck. And so, okay. Bears are a concern, of course, but honestly, bears are just kind of like big dogs at the end of the day. You don't have to worry too much about them unless you run across one with a cub. Oh, which reminds me, if you do go to my YouTube page, I ran across one with a cub. I was walking alone on this trail up in the Olympic Peninsula, a place called Irely Lake, where a lot of footprints come out of every year. And I got there at dusk, so I'm hiking alone at dusk, right? I'm clearly not as smart as I look, right? Or maybe I'm exactly as smart as I look, and that's the problem. But in either case, I was like a mile or more in. I was almost to the lake. I came around this stone wall. I come around the corner, and from, I don't know, man, me to you, there's a black bear. A black bear standing on his hind legs going, it was scenting me, but I was downwind, but it couldn't quite get where I was. And I came around the corner, and I go, oh, black bear. And I went, ah, black bear, ah, you know. And I went, ah, like you're supposed to. And the black bear went like, you didn't have to do that, man. And like kind of like went to wander off, you know. It's like, and I'm like adrenaline's rolling, and I don't carry a firearm generally, you know. I have bear spray. Like, I'm not against firearms or anything. I have a couple. My dad was a sheriff, for example. I have his service revolver. I've got a 357, but I don't really carry it so much. So I have bear spray. And for me, that's better in the woods because the most dangerous thing in the woods are Oregonians, where I live. You know, people live in Oregon, right? And a bear, you know, like if a bear is charging at me or if I'm in a situation where I need a firearm, I got to put this little tiny bullets into that thing that's running. I'm not that good. But bear spray, I can actually correct in real time as the stream comes out. It's actually far safer. If you're not a gun nut, you know, if you're not out there at the firing range like once a week or something, you should probably use bear spray. It's safer for you, and it drives everything away. People, bears, whatever. And you can correct it in real time. You know, like, oh, I'm hitting its legs. I'm going to go up. Oh, I'm hitting the ear. You know, you can correct it. Use bear spray. It's smarter. And you don't have to kill an animal, which is nice, too. But anyway, yeah, and so, I had a bear spray on me, and the bear goes, man, you don't have to do that, and goes off. And I get behind the rock wall, and my heart's going, well, that was a little close, you know? And then I hear the bear go up the tree. And I go, oh. And I had a camera on me, but the camera wasn't on when I was so close to it. So I said, oh, it's up in the tree. Cool, I'm going to get my shot of the bear. Right, so I come around the rock wall, and sure enough, there it is up in the tree. So I start trying to film it, but my camera has like autofocus on it, you know? So I'm keep getting all the leaves and stuff in between me and the bear. And I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, what? The camera's going around, I'm like, what is it? And I'm looking around, and then I finally get the bear in the viewfinder, and I go, that's not the same bear. And I look, and Mom's at the base of the tree that the yearling is up in, you know? And the mom's just going like, you're not acting like all the other ones, you know? And I go, you know, and I start going back, and it scared the heck out of me, man. Because, you know, you don't want to see Mom and a cub, right? And then it starts going, and I go, oh, shoot, you know? And then I'll tell you, that's a long 1 mile walk back to the car. And then, of course, I heard the same sound about halfway back, too, so there are other bears in the area. And it's like, well, gosh. But the reason I go on all that, that's one of our museum videos that's posted for free on YouTube. And the best part about that video, go check out the YouTube page, North American Bigfoot Center. The best part about that video is like when Jackass Cliff is looking at the bear in the tree, trying to focus on it, and the camera's going around, you see Mom at the base of the tree in the camera. But I didn't see Mom at the time. So yeah, just I'm a darn fool is what it is. Anyway, thanks for letting me have that story. That was great. That was great. I'm going to go with this gentleman right here. And all my years, my 30 years in the field, how many times have I actually laid eyes on a Sasquatch? No ifs, ands, or buts. That's a hard question. I would say 0, but I have 2 Class B sightings. Okay? The first one is when Money made, there's something on the hill. Like that thing? Yeah, that was actually probably a Sasquatch. Matt disagrees, but then again, he did chase it off. So, you know, I mean, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. I don't know. Renee, of course, also disagrees, but she was also saying, no, there's no Bigfoots for the next 9 years. So, I don't know. Seems like they have something to lose. But I will say this, the something on the hill thing, it was a man-shaped thing. It was either a human or a Sasquatch, period. We were filming at 2 o'clock in the morning, about 1.5 miles off trail. No one knew we were going to be there. There have been multiple sightings, multiple rock throwings, multiple vocalizations at this same location over several years. When Matt went off after the thing to go kick its butt or whatever he was thinking at the time, it was navigating a thickly wooded hillside, not actually a wooded hillside, without a light at 2 in the morning. Matt never got close to it, quickly outpaced everybody. I saw it through a thermal imager for about 8 seconds or so. It went behind the hill, and we never saw it again. And when Matt came back and Bobo and Renee started yelling at him on camera, we got vocalizations off that same hill. So Bigfoot, human, I mean, to be very fair, I think it was a Sasquatch, but I don't know. You know, maybe Matt and Renee are right. I don't think they are. I think they're wrong. But maybe they are right. I don't know. I got to give them credit for that, you know. And the other time, I don't talk about it very much, but I'll tell you, we're all friends. I don't talk about it because it's so ridiculous. I was in Texas. I was hired for a speaking engagement in Texas for Craig Woolheater's Texas Bigfoot Conference in Jefferson, Texas, Eastern Texas. They picked me up at the Dallas airport, and I was being driven out there by a woman named Tanya, who's now passed, and then Craig was in the passenger seat. I was in the back seat. And we went through Tyler, Texas, and Craig is saying, yeah, we get a lot of road crossings over here. And like 3 or 4 minutes later, we're driving, I'm kind of daydreaming, looking out the window. There's a power line cut as far as you can see. And about 400 yards away, I see a dark human shape walk out of the tree line into the power line cut with his arms swinging. And then zip, we're gone because we're going like 75. And I'm thinking, I'm being driven to a Bigfoot conference. And I might have just seen one of these. No one would believe me anyway. And I don't know what it was. So I don't know what that was, honestly. So who knows? But I'm finding a lot of footprints. And a good friend of mine who turned me onto the location that we're working right now has put eyes on Sasquatches 3 times in 13 months. And he goes there twice a month. I'm out there every day, every week. So we'll see. Keep your fingers crossed for me. I'd appreciate it. This is a good use for thoughts and prayers if you're on that gig, you know? So anyway, what else? What do you want? Have I ever seen any other cryptids like Mothman or any of that sort of stuff? No. In fact, I don't even believe in most other cryptids. Honestly, I'm no fun at all. Be careful what you ask me, because I'm always going to tell you the truth. I think Mothman's nonsense. I don't think there's anything there. Dogman, I don't know, man. You got to convince me on that thing. I don't buy it. Although I know two good witnesses. I don't know what they saw, but there's no ecological niche for Dogman. As far as I can tell, I've never seen any good evidence. All I have are stories, and I don't consider stories to be good evidence. I really don't. Not even Bigfoot stories. They're not good evidence. They're just subjective encounters. Because what I find is most people are terrible observers. I mean, honestly, unless you're a trained observer like a peace officer or something like that. Most people, you know, they tell me, oh, it was 8.5 feet tall. How do you know that, man? Really? So, I mean, I listen to everybody. Don't get me wrong. And I'm one of these Bigfooters. I'm kind of a rare Bigfooter. I'm not looking for more stories and sighting reports. To me, that's not the end goal. The end goal is to learn as much as I can about Sasquatches. Sighting reports are just signposts to me. Look here. That's all it is. And to me, it's a dot on a map. A dot on a map with a timestamp. That's all it is. You know, unless you see it do something cool, you know, some sort of interesting behavior or something like that. But I'm not really looking for sighting reports like that. They help. Don't get me wrong. That's incoming data. I appreciate them. But that's not my end game. A lot of Bigfooters seem to just be in it for the people, you know. They want more stories, they want more connections, and they want that kind of. That's not for me, man. I'm looking for physical evidence, not subjective evidence. But as far as Mothman and stuff, I don't know what's going on with any of that, man. I really don't. I wish I could get on board and have as much fun as everybody else seems to be having looking into that stuff. I just don't believe they're real at this point, you know, because the lack of physical evidence. I don't trust people enough to believe them. And for Sasquatches, you have physical evidence. You have native accounts. You have cultural accounts. You have early history accounts. You have vocalizations. You have footprints. You have handprints. You have body casts. You have butt prints. You have hair samples. You have so much. You got nothing for that other stuff. You got to convince me. I'm a skeptic. I know Sasquatches are real. I'm not skeptical about their existence. I'm skeptical about all the stuff that comes with their existence. So you got to weed through a lot of nonsense to get to the good stuff, you know? It's like a Halloween bag, you know? You go trick-or-treating, and there's all this garbage in there you got to go through to get to the Hershey's, you know? That's what it is for me. Okay, what else do we have? So you had a question here? Uh-huh. She's asking if bears and Sasquatches have much interaction. I don't think so. I think that they have a mutual avoidance because they're both large omnivores, probably going after the same food items and all that sort of stuff. They probably their ecological niches probably overlap quite a bit. Dr. Grover Krantz suggested that one of the ways that they achieve this mutual avoidance is that Sasquatches tend towards nocturnalism. They tend to be more active at night versus the day, whereas bears tend to be more diurnal, active during the day as opposed to night. That might be one of the ways that they split up their foraging behavior in order not to overlap so much. I'll tell you, I do find a lot of bear sign in a couple of my locations, but in another spot where actually we're most successful, I find almost no bear sign, which is interesting. So I don't know, the jury's out on that one. I have taken a couple sighting reports of interesting behaviors of Sasquatches killing and eating bears. So that's of interest. And, you know, bears do have an oily sort of delicious taste about them. All you bear hunters might know that. They make good sausage, etc. But beyond that, I don't think there's any interaction as such. You know, I think they kind of keep to themselves largely. Okay? Anything else you guys would like to know? John Deere, or John Moose, it looks like.
The research you've done, could you possibly estimate the number of creatures that may exist across the United States? And would you say the Pacific Northwest would be like the #1 spot of the total number of sightings?
He's asking about the population of these animals in various locations, including the Pacific Northwest and continent-wide. It's very hard to say. Very hard to say. Right now, people who are interested in the Sasquatch, who know far more about ecology than I do. Ecology is the study of how the animals kind of make their way through, you know, through their existence, right? Estimate, Dr. Grover Krantz is among these, Dr. Jeff Meldrum as well. Dr. Krantz estimated that there are probably about 100 bear for every 1 Bigfoot, okay? Dr. Jeff Meldrum is more conservative about that. He says 1 to 200 bear for every one Bigfoot. Now, I don't have the numbers for Pennsylvania. Maybe somebody can Google it for me real fast, the number of bear here in Pennsylvania. There's kind of a lot of bear in Pennsylvania, which is kind of neat. But Ohio, there's almost none for some reason. There's very, very, very few bear in Ohio, even southeast Ohio. Ohio might be one of these states that's kind of topsy-turvy and has more Bigfoot than they do bear. Right now, I think a safe estimate for continent-wide, that's Alaska to Mexico, because there are Sasquatches in Mexico. I've taken 2 reports from Spanish speakers in Oaxaca, in southern Mexico, okay? And they're certainly in the Sierras and all these other mountains all the way down. Because they're in New Mexico and Arizona, why would they be further south, right? They don't respect borders, right? So I think a continent-wide safe estimation is somewhere in the realm of 5 to 10,000, okay? Which sounds like a lot, but it's not. That would actually make it one of the most rare animals in North America, especially rare large animals. In the Pacific Northwest, in my state of Oregon, there's about 30,000, 35,000 black bear. There are no grizzlies at this moment. So 30 to 35,000, and that's about the same for Washington and also California. So 100 to 1, that means we're looking at 300, 350 Bigfoot, maybe, you know? And Oregon's particularly interesting to me because not only do I live there, but Oregon has the 3rd highest number of forested acres out of all 50 states. There's more forests there than every other state except for Alaska, and oddly enough, Georgia. Georgia has more forested acres. Georgia has the 2nd highest number of forested acres of all 50 states. Georgia also has a lot of Sasquatches, which is interesting. So we have more habitat for them, probably about 300. But, you know, it might be maybe twice that if we're lucky. 300 to 500 Bigfoots in Oregon, maybe. You know? And British Columbia, all bets are off, man. British Columbia is all excellent habitat. And British Columbia alone is bigger than California, Oregon, and Washington all combined. All combined. And it's all good habitat. So God knows how many of them are up there. But I don't know. There's no reason at this point to think that they're endangered, but there's also precious little data to suggest otherwise. So I'd rather err on the side of caution and do everything we can to protect Sasquatches at this point, which unfortunately means only getting scientists involved as soon as possible and also protecting the land on which they live. And luckily, most of the land on which they live is public land that we actually own. American citizens own that. So let's stop giving away like mining leases and all this other stuff. And you know, we need industry, don't get me wrong, but let's not go crazy. You know, there's a lot of animals, including ourselves, that depend on that habitat. Thank you for your question. You, sir. Do I think the Patterson-Gimlin film is real? Yeah, I do, actually. I do. I can't believe people are still talking about it, though. Like, I'm almost tired of talking about that. It's an excellent video, or not a video at all. It's a film, actually. It's a fantastic film. It is in focus, by the way. People say it's blurry, but it's not. The camera was set on infinite focus. That means everything in the frame's focused. The reason it looks blurry is because of film technology. The film emulsion has these little granules, like pieces of sand in it, that collect light and reflect it back. Those are called grains. That's why we say that certain films are grainy. Grains, the size of a grain is random. Like you throw sand on a table. That's kind of the way that grains are arranged on the film. So when you make copies, the grains aren't. When you make a copy of a film, the grains are not arranged in exactly the same way, so some of the information's lost. That's why the original is the most important copy. But it's not blurry at all, despite what everybody says. Bob Gimlin is a friend of mine. I know Bob pretty well. You know, I've gone out to lunch with he and his wife. Like I don't see him very often anymore. He's getting pretty old. He's like mid-90s now, but he's a friend. A lot of people don't know that Bob Gimlin kind of lost a lot for this film. He was promised 1/3 of the profits from the film. Now Roger went on tour with the film in 1968. And he like sold out the Tacoma Dome and Portland Coliseum and stuff, like big venues. Yeah, it was before my time too, but Dr. Meldrum saw Roger Patterson live, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, Roger made kind of a lot of money. Bob got zero. kind of got screwed out of it, you know. Al Diatley, Roger's father-in-law, took some of the money. Roger took some of the money. Roger even hired an actor to play Bob Gimlin live during these presentations. Years and years go by. Bob was called a liar. It caused a lot of problems between he and his wife, Judy. He never got any of the money he was promised at all. He eventually sold all rights to his part of the film for $1. That's what Bob told me, $1 to Renee DeHinden. And to this day, he says, what I saw was an animal. If anybody on the planet has incentive to admit a hoax or point a finger, it would be Bob Gimlin. He was screwed out of tens of thousands of dollars in 1967, which is a lot of money in 1967. Like a house would cost $30,000 in California at that time, you know? And he was screwed out of all that money. He sold it all for $1 and then said, no, to this day. And there's always some other fool that comes up and says, I was the guy in the suit. Yeah, there's been like 7 or 8 people now, and none of them know where the film site is. None of them. That Bob Hieronymus guy that was featured in the famous book, The Making of Bigfoot, he gave 2 conflicting locations for the film site, and the closest he got was 20 miles away. I've been to the film site more than a dozen times. It's not easy to get to. You wouldn't forget how to get there back in '67 either, when it was even harder. Anyway, yeah, Patterson-Gimlin film is completely real, in my opinion. That's my bet. Yes. She's asking if the scientific establishment is more interested in Sasquatches today than they were a while ago. And the answer is that I would say yes. I would say yes. And that's because the old guys are dying off. Okay, the old anthropologists and stuff, they're all kind of dying, and it's a new flush of young people, and some of which watch my show. And I'm thankful that our show, at the end of the day, as ridiculous as some of the episodes were, did no damage to the subject. Okay, it kind of ushered in the next generation, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But there's also some other paradigm shifts that were very important that are kind of bringing some of the other scientists around to the possibility that these things might be there. You see, back when I was a kid in the 1970s, and by the way, I'm not looking at time at all. I don't know how much time I have or anything. So just get a... Okay, I've got about 10 or 15 minutes, or 10 minutes left. I'll do 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes left. Help me out with this. But back when I was a kid in the 1970s, I was born in 1970. I'm 53 years old. And back then, the scientists wouldn't look at the Sasquatch thing because they already knew they weren't real, because there was no place for them in the evolutionary paradigm, okay? There just was no place for them. Because at the time, human evolution was thought of as a linear process. Everybody's heard about the tree of life or something like that. And people generally thought that one species was present, and then another species came in and occupied that same ecological niche. A niche, by the way, or a niche, is how an animal makes a living. Okay, it was thought at the time, something called the one species hypothesis, that only one animal can make their living in that way in an environment at a time, because there wasn't room for two competing for the same resources, for the same food items and living in the same manner and all that sort of stuff. That's an ecological niche, okay? And it was thought that no 2 animals could occupy the same niche at the same time. And therefore, like, say, for example, Homo heidelbergensis, okay? Everyone knows heidelbergensis was the precursor to Neanderthals, okay? They were around for a while, and then Neanderthals showed up on the scene and were just better at everything than the Homo heidelbergensis and drove them extinct. And then Neanderthals were present, and then Homo sapiens showed up, us, human beings. And we were better and smarter and cooler than Neanderthals were, and we drove them extinct. That's how the idea of human evolution was back in the 70s and 80s. But as recently as the 1990s, that paradigm was thrown out. Now we know that is not the case. So instead of a linear progression, we now know, just like all the other animals, that it is a big bushy thing where all these other branches come off of that central trunk, and these are all different species. And a lot of these species lasted a long time, until very, very recently. And in fact, a lot of these species inhabited the planet at the same time as other hominins. Hominin with an N at the end. That's a special word that means all of the human relatives. Okay? So we know that multiple species of hominin lived on the planet at the same time, and in some cases, the same place. So throw out the one species hypothesis. We now know that's not true. That does not exist. We have multiple species of hominin existing on the planet at the same time and same place. That revolution in paleoanthropology occurred in the 90s. That's really recently. Really recently. Now, to give you some idea, in the last 150,000 years, okay, which is a blink of an eye, that's really fast, geologically speaking. Off the top of my head, Homo sapiens were here. Neanderthals were here. Let's see, the last Homo heidelbergensis were around. There's evidence that the last Homo erectus were around. We have Homo naledi. We have Homo floresiensis, the hobbit species from the island of Flores in Indonesia. We have their neighbor from the Philippines, Homo luzonensis. We have, two new species were described a year ago, July, Homo longi, which may be Homo denisovans. I'll count them as separate. And there's another species whose name escapes me because Homo longi and this other species were announced at the same time, and Homo longi had a much sexier name. They were called Dragon Man. So the other one got buried in the press. So there's 9 or 10 species off the top of my head that existed in the last 150,000 years. So now there is a place for Sasquatch in the primate family tree. Because it is possible that more than one species existed at the same time and same place. Whereas when I was young, that was nonsense. No anthropologist would ever dream of that. But now there is a place for that. So yes, science is starting to come around a little bit. Just a little bit. As these old guys die off and the young people come in who are taught the correct model of human evolution. So there you go. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'll do one last question. Does that sound about right? Yeah, one last question, and then we'll get going. Who have I not spoken to? Nothing personal against the others. It's like, let's see. Your arm must be very tired and totally lacking blood at this point. Go ahead. The dude in the black. Yeah. Say again, please, louder. Other species of Bigfoot white. Are other species of Bigfoot white? Fight. No, the only animals that really fight with any regularity are humans, which kind of make us the dumbest in a way, you know? Because fighting's not an intelligent thing to do, you know, in any way. If any other animals fight, it's only because they're competing for the same resource, which is also why humans do it, oddly enough. Although we also have this, idea about pride and these things that don't really exist that we pretend do, you know? So there's that as well. But I'm going to answer my own question. Are they white? Because, everybody thinks Yetis are white. No, they're not. Actually, they're brown. I've been to Nepal. I've spoken to Nepalese people who have observed these things. Yetis are not white. That is a myth that was propagated by the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing with the Bumble, with Yukon Cornelius and all that stuff, and the Island of Misfit Toys. Showing my age here. Yeah, Yetis aren't white. Yeah, Yetis aren't white. They probably don't fight either, for that matter. But yeah, they aren't white. That's all myth from Rudolph. Anyway, if you have any other questions, I will be at my table. If you're interested in the museum, go to the website, check it out. Go to the YouTube page, see what we got going on. Maybe you want to be a member. Maybe you don't. That's cool with me. Either way. Thank you very much, Pennsylvania.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Barackman.
That's awesome.